Hello, everyone. This is auto asphyxiation. This is Lark.
And Kimberly.
That's right. We have another week of auto asphyxiation. And, you know, this weekend, I went to the Bike JC award tour in Jersey City. And the thing was really interesting about this was like I was on social media as I often am, and someone was like, "Do you see Jersey City? Who wants New? Just like, do you want New Jersey to look like Jersey City?" And I thought in my head, yeah, I kind of do.
Uh, what's wrong with Jersey City?
There are like all these buildings and bicycles. I was like, well should I want? What do you? What should it look like? A bunch of single family homes and people yelling about Amazon still, like someone stealing their Amazon package. I don't know. Like I that doesn't seem like an appealing alternative because that seems like the other thing is going on in New Jersey. Like my home, my house, my pool, and no one can use.
And I'm on Nextdoor. I don't know if you are as well. Not that I spend a lot of time on there, but most of Nextdoor is someone has stolen my Amazon packages.
I'm so sick of that conversation because all it's going to happen is eventually they're just going to like, oh, we don't need the post office, so you could just pick up your stuff at our you can just pick it up at the Amazon warehouse in at Whole Foods. That's what's going to happen. People are going to like complain themselves out of home delivery because they're not, and that's going to be like, well, see, because of the crime, and it's like half of these packages disappear. It's like the last mile, so it's like they drop the package off at the post office, and then they think, oh well, it's not there because they said it dropped it off. They dropped it off the post office because Amazon doesn't have the infrastructure to do the last mile delivery, so the U.S. Post Office, and then they get the package. They never bring it up. They never come back to say, oh, I got the package, I made a mistake.
You're exactly right.
It's just continuous. And like, what I'm like, what are you getting? What are you buying from Amazon? Like, how much stuff are people buying? Like, I don't know. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about today. We are talking, well, we are, though. We're talking about transportation, but we're talking about not transportation of objects, but we're talking about transportation of people. And so we have decided to kind of go through the news, the New Jersey local news, which we do have. Other than our publication, Spaces and Means of Production and Auto Asphyxiation, there are plenty of others like New Jersey Monitor, the New Jersey Vindicator, the Bergen Record. There's a Princeton Walking. I said Walkable Princeton, just so we can just to give people like their credit in regards to where we're getting this information. We will also link all of these resources in the information below the video, not below the video, below the audio podcast. So here's the thing. The New Jersey Monitor, we'll start with not with that. First we'll start with, do you think transportation is important? Transportation in New Jersey is important, Kimberly?
I do. I do think that transportation is important. I think that public transportation is very vital to the health and well-being of New Jersey as we move along to the 2030s.
That's so weird to say that because we are going to 2030. I'm just kind of like, wow, that's I have finally got people to use the term the odds, and now we're 30 years later. We're actually, I gotta say 2030, which just sounds weird to me because we can't do we can't go like the 30s because people are gonna be like, which 30s, like which 20s, like, so we're gonna have to actually say 2030 because I wonder if people have that problem during the 1830s and the 1920s. They're like, which 20s are you talking about? Well, I mean, I don't. Anyway, so I'm going to go to New Jersey Monitor and go by what actually four candidates stated. Newark Mayor, it's Ras Baraka. I keep saying Ross, but it's Ras Baraka. Is a Democrat, He said New Jersey Transit is too focused on the commuters who travel between New Jersey and New York and Philadelphia. Baraka said he would require the agency to pay more attention to New Jerseyans who use its train and buses to get around the Garden State. Bill Spadilla, a Republican radio talk show host, said he'd monetize New Jersey Transit's assets by giving the properties they own back to the towns to be used as ratables. Spandius also said he'd close the system by requiring riders to show their tickets before boarding trains. Yeah, I bet you he's never been on the train. Sean,
I don't think that he has.
Yeah, Sean Spiller, a Democrat and president of the statewide teachers union, said he's also would also stop transit funding from getting pulled into the state budget and repurposed for other projects. So like, oh, we don't really need that transit. Let's put it for something else, like a pool. No, I'm just making it up. All right. That would be key to funding improvements that make service better, he said. Jersey City Mayor Steve Fulop, a Democrat, criticized the new funding source, called the corporate transit fee, saying the system and its current structure from Phil Murray's not working. Fulop said he would make that fee permanent. So currently the fee that is kind of like on top, that kind of helps to fund transit, is for, I think, companies that make over 2 million. I'll correct that. Dollars, and essentially it's going to generate approximately $800 million a year, and is set to end, or as they call it, sunset, in 2029. So how do you feel about these different candidates and what they stated about transit and their transportation ideas in the New Jersey Monitor?
Well, I definitely agree with Baraka in saying that too much attention is paid to people who are commuting through New Jersey rather than focusing more of transit on the people who actually live here and need to get around in the state rather than just kind of leave it. I think that all of them, Fulop, Baraka, and Spiller, had some great ideas regarding the corporate tax and expanding it, making it permanent, and protecting it from reappropriation into other things as well. I think that Spadilla, I don't think he's ever ridden the train. They come around pretty quickly to take your ticket when you're on the train. Like, it has to do with how many employees you have and things like that. Like, you don't have somebody right there to check, like 50, 60 people coming onto a train right away. So sorry.
Yeah, I'm just like, how would that work on the light rail? Like, oh, we're gonna here's the thing. You'd have to hire more people to order to be on the train to check everybody's ticket. And I'm just like, closed system. It is a closed, it's not free. You can't just hop on the train. Like, what do you mean by closed? Like, they do check on New Jersey heavy rail, they do check your ticket. Well, they check my ticket. They don't check everybody's ticket. I have to say they check. So I feel like they check my ticket more than they check Chaz's ticket, for reasons that I'm not going to go into right now. But New Jersey Light Rail, I feel like, no, I mean, it's anyway. I actually really like the fact that Baraka was like, oh, what about people who travel intra New Jersey? I'm thinking about, like, in regards to this is really important. This is something that has always been very a sticking point with me in regards to, hey, it'd be great for me to be able to see different parts of New Jersey, but I can only go to Manhattan. And
right, like, no, but seriously, and like New Jersey is a small state. But it is, there is a lot to see here. And it's ridiculous that, like, everybody is focused on how quickly can we get through New Jersey without worrying about the actual people that live here and how we want to get around.
Yeah, it's a problem. I think it's something that they should be actually really be thinking about, because also it limits where people can work. If you can't get a job in Manhattan, then what are you supposed to do? You can't even, you have to have a car. And this is not, and it isn't even about it is about the fact that having a car is expensive, but it's also about the climate crisis. You continue this situation where you're subsidizing car ownership, but not quite enough for people who are low income, but enough for people who are middle class or upper middle class. And I think this is where, I'm going to go to the Bergen Record, and they talk about making the public transit fee permanent. And this is a Bergen Record. Baraka said, I would go further by extending it to corporations earning $1 million or more in profit. I think now you have to earn like $2 million. Fulop said, yes, I support continuing a form of corporate business tax surcharge as a dedicated funding stream for New Jersey Transit. These funds came from large profitable corporations that rely on New Jersey's infrastructure. Because let's be honest, New York could not exist without New Jersey, and lots of companies couldn't exist without it. Despite what you say, New Jersey is the backbone of the New York metro area, and it creates a lot of its workers. I know it educates them.
It absolutely does. It educates them. Also, like, we have a huge pharmaceutical industry here in New Jersey. And like, I feel like if corporations want to do business in New Jersey, then they need to stop viewing New Jersey as an extension of New York City or Philadelphia.
Yeah,
New Jersey is its own place. It has its own unique culture here. And I think Baraka, Full Ups, and Spillers platforms speak more to that, and more to bringing more of that money and making sure that it's used for public transit.
Yeah, and like to continue with Fulop said, he said like always says, Amazon and Walmart get tax breaks. Dedicated long-term funding is essential to stabilizing modern public transit. And Spiller said, yes, with more than 12,000 employees servicing over 925,000 weekly trips by bus, train, and light rail, New Jersey Transit, despite its challenges and needed improvements, is a cornerstone of our infrastructure and economy. In order to make New Jersey Transit efficient and reliable, we need to provide a stable funding source. A lot of people do complain about public transit, but they don't understand. It relies on funding, just like the streets. Our streets, our turnpikes, the Garden State. If it weren't for public dollars, if it weren't for those subsidies, it would be horrible driving on the street. But we have this car, and listen, I'm not going to talk about the free parking problem that we have, where you got free parking everywhere for your car, for Uber, for all these. The amount of resources that are spent on private vehicles could be spent on public transit. But the people who say absolutely not, and this is still from the Bergen Record in regards, well, not absolutely not. This is the people said not a yes. I said not a yes. They were very kind of like, should we continue the public transit, surcharge for corporations? Sweeney, of course, was like, he said, my goal is to have New Jersey Transit physically stable so as not to rely on the CBT in 2028. I was first to call for the dedication of the corporate business tax to New Jersey Transit and wanted it to constitutionally dedicate it, but only until New Jersey Transit could stand on its own without it. Now, since that's just not going to happen, that's like saying, oh, if this reminds me of, and I think this is, like, I know this is really bizarre to bring this up, but I think about the show, The Biggest Loser, and they tell the people, well, I know that you are 900 pounds and you are addicted, and I'm sorry, 600 pounds. And I'm not mocking it, but like, you're 600 pounds and you're addicted to food, but I'm not going to give you this life-changing surgery until you on your own can lose 100 pounds before the next visit. I always felt that was some like sick, sadistic, twisted, kind of like saying, see, I'm giving you a chance, but it can't happen.
And importantly, it also shows how out of touch some of the people who are running for governor are with the whole concept of public transportation. Public transportation is not a business that is supposed to run a profit. Public transportation is a service, just like schools or public hospitals are a service. They are not supposed to have a profit. They're a service for people to have and to use. And for me, like, funding public transportation in a state that the size of New Jersey, that exists between two major metro areas, it's a no-brainer. having a car in a state that is 3.5 to 4 hours long by driving, in having to have a car in the majority of the state is just kind of ridiculous. Clean, accessible public transportation is the lifeblood of a forward thinking and forward moving society.
Yes, and and also too, we can't afford uh oil. We can't afford having a car anymore. It's beyond just about like personal people who can't afford it. It's about our environment cannot handle this kind of supporting this kind of infrastructure. We need to create infrastructure that supports clean air, that supports dismantling this climate crisis that we're having, and that's going to take denser housing. Denser housing is going to take public transit, bicycles, ways that people can walk, ways so that we're not creating sprawl, we're not creating all this pollution. And also too, so we create community. When you create the situation where you're in your car, you're not creating community. Um, and another person who was very kind of iffy, Gottheimer, we desperately need to fix New Jersey transit so the trains and the buses run more efficiently, frequently, and reliable. I continue to invest in New Jersey transit, including buying new cars and buses, build the new bus terminals, add a ferry, and make the investments we need to support our workforce and to grow our economy. So he also didn't say yes or necessarily no in regards to the corporate transit, but it's all about these code words: efficient. We need to make it efficient. If people, and here's the thing, like, what do we use to measure efficient? Oh, profitable. So this is not, and what do we view as profitable? We view money as profit, not like, oh, this is creating a more inclusive society. This is creating a situation so that we're polluting the air less. This is creating a situation where we're able to walk and run and jog or bicycle to work. Why am I saying jogging to work? I don't know why I said that. That's outrageous. I don't know why I said that, but just alternatives to driving.
And I think people also like, like we view like, so like let's turn around the words on profit, and let's turn like, what is profit? Like, so profits are investments, profits are money, investments in our future. Children are profits in a way. Wouldn't the reduction of the asthma rates of children in Newark be considered a form of profit? Because those children can grow up to lead healthier lives, and also their children and their children's children will be subsequently healthier.
Wow, that's a really good point. I mean, I didn't even think of. I mean, I thought about that before, but no, you're right. It's like, yes, like healthy children, that should be viewed as profit. That should be a metric that's viewed as a profitable, a profitable outcome. And I think the thing is really interesting is that in Newark, a lot of people don't have cars, and I think this is something that is very interesting when Baraka was like, well, we need to make it so that we can have transportation all across New Jersey, because he actually lives in an area where there are people who don't have access to cars. And so, for order for them to get around to the grocery store, to pick up childcare, they need to be able to get around the actual city of New Jersey because they're not going to be going to Manhattan. And this is something that's really important. So let's go to Sherrill. Sherrill says, I'm committed to ensuring the New Jersey's transit operating budget has sustainable long-term state funding to make service for New York families as convenient and accessible as possible, which includes boosting ridership, reducing congestion, and lowering emissions in our community. I will use the corporate transit fee to actually fund transit and reevaluate the proposal in 2028 to ensure that it continues to best meet New Jersey transit budget needs. And I'm like, we need continuous funding. This whole like, well, I don't know, like what is the metric they're going to use that, oh, we no longer need $800 million
Yeah.
a year?
When has that ever happened? I don't know. Like, have you ever need like in like a 5 year span, have you ever needed less money than you did the 5 years prior?
yeah, in life I've never really seen that happen. So I don't know why they're kind of like, well, we want to be careful. And this could be why. I'm going to read like the responses from our the Republicans, and who said absolutely not. I'm not going to continue the corporate transit fee. Bramnick says no. I will work to repeal the corporate transit fee immediately because of course he is. Then there is I Sid Torelli.
Your guess is as good as mine. I've never pronounced it. I've never heard it said out loud. I've only ever read it. So
Yeah, that's like okay. I feel like I've only read the name, but we know everybody knows who we're talking about because he runs every single time that there's an opportunity to run. He's always running, and saying something awful. Well, of course he does it again. Absolutely not. As a governor, I plan to cut business taxes in half and make us competitive again with Pennsylvania and New York and the country. New Jersey's competitive now. I mean, what's he talking about? This whole like make New Jersey great again. What is this rhetoric?
New Jersey, yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think I read somewhere that New Jersey like gives like so much money in like federal taxes to the government that like them like kind of threatening us with like cutting off federal funding for things is just kind of like an empty threat because we can just take money from somewhere else and push it over there and be okay.
Yeah, we could we're not quite California, but we could be our own state. I mean, our state, our own in regards to we could be our own country. So this whole like idea that we are some, I don't want to insult backwood states, but this idea that we're some backwater place where we are not only do we have Princeton, not only do we have Rutgers, not only do we have excellent education. Like I think if we're not the top education in the country, number two in our K-12 education, in regards to like manufacturing, import, export, we are doing quite well. And the only problem we have is that we have to kind of hedge our bets because of these reactionaries. We could be doing even better if we weren't like worrying about reactionaries like Citarelli. This is again, as we're saying these things, we want you to know this is not an endorsement of any candidate. We're simply saying what is happening and what it is and what something is. So anyway, and then we know that if you cut funding for public transit, this is just an economic fact that this is going to harm not only just people, but it'll harm our actual political economy. It'll harm our competitiveness. And this, because how are people going to get into New York? How are people going to get into Philadelphia? So this whole idea we're going to drive there, even without congestion pricing. Driving to New York is expensive, even before congestion pricing. So this whole idea that we will be helping people by dismantling public transit is just untrue.
It's giving when people like it's shocking to me that Americans and New Jersey citizens are so selfish that they view public transportation as a nice thing to have or an option rather than what it is, a necessity and right in the modern world.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that so let's round it up with Spadilla, who also says absolutely not. Absolutely not. We must monetize the existing New Jersey transit land assets to create ratables for towns and reduce waste. We need to revamp the ticketing system to cut down on fraud. The amount of fraud is so minor. Partner with private companies to service routes with lower utilization and service more residents. No, we don't need any more crony capitalism going on in New Jersey, which has a long history of that, where essentially we have a situation where this is the reason why we don't have a comprehensive intra New Jersey transit system is because we have a bunch of private buses and a bunch of we did before COVID, we had a bunch of private buses driving people around to so they wouldn't, essentially creating a private a suburban, kind of like a private transit service that were only certain people were told about it and certain people were not. I didn't even know that where I am, I guess they had a private bus and no one told me about it. I didn't know about it until it got shut down. And then I said, well, good for them, because it was like clearly only certain people were allowed to take it. And then somebody explained to me, I saw Black people on that bus.
A lot of those dollar buses too, like weren't those like really unsafe? Weren't they like breaking down like on like the throughway and stuff like that?
Well, yeah, you had different levels. You had like the kind of like the limousine service for like the more affluent, and then you had the dollar vans for the people who had less money. So we had, and it's kind of like, yeah, these are all things that are, we need a comprehensive. We don't need just like our towns. We don't need all these little towns that there are neighborhoods that are actually, they turn to cities so they can discriminate. We also don't need our bus service turned into a version of that, where if I go from Montclair to Bloomfield to East Orange, I got to transfer buses 3 times because each little town has their own. And I know that's the dream. That's the dream. Oh, we have a little trolley that goes around our neighborhood only. You can't leave the neighborhood. We know that's going to happen. That would be the dream.
Well, when I was looking over and the notes that you sent me on Sean Spiller's platform, and he was talking about that the data, and in Montclair they found that like more narrow streets prevented people from reckless driving and bump outs, et cetera, et cetera. And like I disagree. Like I drive down narrow streets all the time and it seems to lead to just more double parking and more reckless driving. Like my husband and I were driving around yesterday, and we took my stepson out for breakfast and we dropped him off and we're driving home, and like the little narrow streets were just constantly blocked, so that we were like, it was like a race, like slaloming like back and forth, and very rarely on our own side of the road, because that was the only way that you could actually get down the road because they were blocked.
Yeah, the thing is very interesting. It's like, I think the thing is that, a lot of times us in urban transit, or not urban transit, in urban planning and transportation planning, we have ideas of what can slow things down and what can improve access to transportation and housing. And one of the studies that we had was that narrow streets with trees and things such as that would slow traffic down. But they don't take into account that every neighborhood is not the same. So while in maybe an area that is more affluent, if you have like narrow streets and people are working the same time, like, they have a 9 to 5 job, a narrow street is going to look different than if you have neighborhoods where people are using it as a thoroughfare. They're using it to get to make deliveries. They're using it to make, so it's going to need more than just, in some areas, you're going to need more than just be able to narrow the street. You're going to have to be able to provide people with public transit. You're going to have to make it so that you don't have trucks coming down the street. You're going to have to make it so that instead of having an Amazon truck, maybe you have like an Amazon bike. I mean, the thing is that it's not going to be like a one size solution that fits in every town. We have to use a diverse group of tools in order to accommodate our towns. And I think that's the whole thing. We have kind of like, oh, we're going to do a zoning and we're going to essentially make all the neighborhoods the same. Like, oh, if people live there, it's going to be single family homes. If businesses are there, we're going to have it so it's only businesses there. And so we don't have this kind of variety and this flexibility that we can change ideas or try out theories and then see, oh, this doesn't work in this neighborhood, or maybe we need to adjust it this way. So I think the important thing is to kind of, look at what is going on and look at what, you know, is this continuing to work? If you have a freeway and people are continually getting a highway, and people are continually getting in accidents on a certain on ramp or off ramp, you'd be like, oh, let me fix this. Um, we need to do that same thing in regards to pedestrian safety. We do that same thing in regards to bicycle safety. Right now we're going to go to Walkable Princeton. The reason I keep kind of like going back to the topic and saying where we're getting the information from, because I want people to know that we're not just randomly talking. We actually look through different media to see like what these various people were thinking in regards to public transit and transportation. Former New Jersey President Steve Sweeney reckoned that the answer is to widen roads at safe walking and bike facilities, and that the state should provide money to make that happen. As he says, Spiller didn't agree because of the narrow roads. That's what you're talking about, that conversation. The thing is that if to me, I'd be like this: if you want to create protected bike lanes on all of our streets, like if you want to use that, if you want to create like widen the roads by taking away parking and putting like bike lanes and then protected bike lanes, I would be like, oh, I'd be all for that. But I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think he's going to do that. But another thing, we're going to go to Jersey City. Steve Fulop pointed out that he had created the largest bike share program in the state, added 25 miles of protected bike lanes, adopted a Vision Zero program, which means that no crashes, program that significantly reduced serious crashes. Fulop wants the state to work much faster and make intersections safe to prioritize mass transit. Regarding trails, this is regarding Fulop, Fulop, Sweeney, and Spiller. They all saw a priority for state and regional planning. Spiller worried that there is a shortage of dollars to fund trail network. He suggested public-private partnerships could help support trail expansions, but fears Donald Trump administration would cut off funding at the federal level. Fulop disagreed and said the funding conversation has to always revolve around Trump. He pointed out that the state, the New Jersey Transit Authority, and the local municipalities spending billions of their own money on transportation projects every year. The key thing is to make sure those dollars are spent with focus on mass transit and alternative forms of getting around. Like, yes, the New Jersey Turnpike Authority does not have to prioritize cars. It can actually prioritize non-car transportation and people. And Sweeney agreed, saying that funding has to be more than just about funding for roads and trucks, and that bike paths have never been a priority in New Jersey. So I think that that's something that, that they're looking at. And I don't know what they were trying to say there, but I think maybe they're saying, and for the trails, maybe we want to use private public partnership instead of using our tax dollars in order to fund the trails, and we should use our tax dollars to kind of like fund maybe like bike infrastructure, pedestrian infrastructure, and public transit. I do not know if that's what they meant. I interpret it that way. I could be interpreting it wrong. They might not be saying that at all.
Well, and I think that with a strong, I think New Jersey with a strong Democratic governor in place and a strong, predominantly Democratic state Senate doesn't really need to worry that much about Trump's threats, and I think that yes, there are certain things that we're concerned about with the governor's race. And there are certain things that we want to make sure that are enshrined in the New Jersey state constitution. But I don't think that we need to worry about MAGA pulling dollars out from us.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to, but we have enough. I think we have a powerful enough economy on its own to withstand those cuts. It is tragic that we are going to lose a lot of ability to kind of get those federal dollars for projects, but I feel like we could use the money that we're spending on our highways and parkways and all those items, and we could use it instead we can use it to develop our public transit and use it to develop our bike lanes and pedestrian paths. I think the one thing to kind of like, we're gonna almost kind of wrap this up because we're going to actually kind of look at we went to the actual pages of Baraka, Fulop, Spiller, Sherrill, and Sweeney in regards to their environmental agenda. The one thing I did like about Baraka and Fulop is that their transportation agenda was both of them rolled it into the environmental agenda, which means that they didn't view transportation in this silo way. They didn't view like housing in the silo way. They both viewed their environmental and agenda as something that was holistic and inclusive of that involved not only just transportation but also housing and also labor and also health. They both had very comprehensive agendas that I appreciated. Spiller, Sherrill, and Sweeney were kind of like, it was like one of the issues. It wasn't they weren't as extensive. Just like we need to have more buses. We need to have more buses, and they didn't really spend a lot of time on it. I suggest everyone look at it and see in regards to like how much time and effort they spent talking about transportation on their site. Like, so you could see like what they prioritize in regards to, who they are. If you say I'm for, bike lanes, I'm for pedestrian access, I'm for, accessible public transportation. And then you go to your site and transportation is kind of like in a separate section, and it's just like, yeah, we should have a bus. I think it kind of speaks to what you think is important. And I think like looking at people's public transit, looking at their, do you think that the EV vehicles, do you feel that we should be giving tax credits for that? Do you feel that we should be doing more intra New Jersey transit? I think I think Baraka and Fulop spoke to that. Spiller to some point spoke to it. Sherrill and Sweeney, it wasn't as extensive. Doesn't mean that they don't care. It just means, okay, but this way, I'll go to Mickey Sherrill. She put down, sorry, it's Mikey. I don't know why I keep saying Mickey. Mikey Sherrill. It says in New Jersey, transportation isn't just policy; it's the backbone of our state, and now it's causing us far too many headaches. New Jersey commuters face, and families, including my own, have faced unacceptable delays, congestions, and service breakdowns on transportation systems that we rely on. Too many commuters have had frustration waiting for a train or bus that never comes, leading to missed shifts, family occasions, and kids' events. And so she says we need accessible public transit that our families and commuters can rely on. And I think, and she's always still talking about Amtrak, and, New Jersey commuters keep suffering because of Amtrak. I think that, here's the thing. Again, Mickey Sherrill is focused a lot on people who are commuting into New York City. Which, that's not a negative thing, but we do need someone who cares about public transit within New Jersey.
Absolutely. And I think that, just like going through everybody's platforms, like Gottheimer and Sherrill, they kind of give like this like vibe of I've never been on a train. I know she said that she's had like, delays that have affected her and her family. I didn't read about them, and I would expect a person that was like a candidate for governor to be pretty loud about that. And of course, like Citarelli, Spadilla, like they're giving whore for the billionaires. Like they want to like make sure that like corporate taxes are cut. Like corporations are making hand over fist in New Jersey. They can afford a tax that helps fund our public transportations so that their own workers within New Jersey don't have to necessarily own a car.
And I don't understand how that's a negative. I think that's a positive thing. I don't understand what this anti public transit is. It goes along with this I don't like they don't like public transit, they don't like public health care, they don't like public schools, they don't like public colleges. They simply just don't want they don't want to do anything that helps people, and or nature or the environment, and this is all very disturbing. But I think the thing is that I'm very hopeful with the candidates that we do have running on the Democratic side. And again, this is not an endorsement. This is simply, okay, we talk about urban issues, we talk about transportation, we talk about the environment, we talk about the climate crisis. And the people, we are simply saying these are the people that are speaking to this issue. Unfortunately, I don't view the climate as a partisan issue, but apparently people in the Republican Party do. The people in the Republican Party in New Jersey do, because they have not only did they not really speak on it in regards to what they were going to do to make public transit better, they were actively hostile. They were actually hostile towards anything that's not car related. And this is, we're not being partisan. Climate is not partisan; it's for everybody. But apparently, they view it as that, and that's horrible, and that's a tragic thing.
Well, it's those increasing, like when I read through Baraka's platform, like he talked about the increase in childhood asthma rates in Newark. Those aren't just in Newark, that is across the United States. And that is especially in a densely populated area like New Jersey. That's not a partisan issue. That affects red children and blue children across the board. Like the air you breathe doesn't know political boundaries.
Exactly. And I think this is something that's always interesting. It's like people think the climate crisis is like, well, I'll just move. Well, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't, like, you're just gonna move. Yeah. So who's going to grow the food? What's going, like this whole idea? We could just move. Like, oh, your house is gone. Is your insurance is they drop you from your insurance. This is where I'm from in California. They're dropping people from insurance. We're having fires. And people are like, oh, we'll just rebuild. And I'm like, wow, you're just gonna, one day we're gonna talk about Altadena, and they're like, we're gonna rebuild bigger and better than before. And I'm like, that's not going to stop the wind and the fires. What can you say? What can you say? And with that, do you have anything to add, Kimberly?
Make a plan to vote, everybody. Like, do your research, read about the candidates, figure out who suits your own personal morals best, and make a plan to get out and vote in the primary, please.
Yes, do that. And that starts today, Tuesday. Well, this will be on Tuesday when you listen to it. All right. So you guys have a great evening, and thank you for listening. Remember to subscribe. That's very important. Press the subscribe button.
Bye.